is Alexander. Shabbat for three. Bingo!
Butler get it for the win. Got it! He is hard to believe.
Here's Jordan.
Yes. The Magic, a 360 turn with the dribble. Magic down the middle. Gives underneath the Worthy. Slam dunk.
Third in the corner. Double fake.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Dime Dropper, night number 3 of the 2022 NBA playoffs. Before we get started, please make sure to subscribe on YouTube at Dime Dropper Podcast, Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify, and of course, to follow us on all social media platforms at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Dime Dropper Pod. Remember to leave a review if you would like, and remember to drop some comments for the algorithms. Drop some comments right now in the live chat. We are live right on midnight. About midnight, just after midnight, 4:20, to recap the games on April 19th. 3 game 2s we had tonight: the Hawks and the Heat, the Grizzlies and the Wolves, and the Suns and the Pelicans, all of which I watched, hence the reason why I'm a little bit later tonight. I will try to do a better job of getting on a little bit earlier for you guys in the near future. But when there's not going to be, when the 3 games goes away and it's just 2 games, it'll be much easier to do that. But anyway, let's start out talking tonight. The Atlanta Hawks and the Miami Heat. Obviously, the Atlanta Hawks got absolutely wrecked in the first game. So we knew it was going to be a better response and a better performance, particularly by Trae Young, who had the worst playoff game of his young career on Sunday. I think he was 1 for 14. So it was going to be imperative to see how he bounced back tonight. And he definitely bounced back a little bit better, but there were still some problems. I turned the game on a little bit late in the first quarter, and you could already see the same story we saw in game 1 with the way the Heat were going to defend him, and that was smothering him. Switch everything, which blew up the schemes, because the few moments that Trae Young actually got some freedom was when the Heat did play more traditional with Dwayne Dedmon in, were either going drop coverage or hedge, recover / blitz. When they were going switch everything, they weren't just switching everything and letting Trae go on an island against guys. They were switching everything and then loading up on him. There were even times where when there was a guard setting the screen, they would switch it, but the guard would basically stay hovering around him as if it made it look like Trae was double or triple teamed. So not only that, Miami's getting really physical with him. And when he's on the sidelines or baseline, they're trapping him every time. Similarly to how Draymond Green, when he's been blitzing hard on the wings or sidelines, like right in front of where the coach stands. He forced 3 turnovers, Draymond Green, on that last night. But similar situation to Trae Young tonight with the Heat. And they're all over him. But the Hawks did start out pretty good. You know, DeAndre Hunter caught a couple of lobs and had some nice finishes. Again, no Clint Capella, which really hurts. But John Collins had a bigger role tonight than in game 1. Somebody who really impressed me, though, tonight, and it was probably his best playoff game ever. We can debate whether one of the bubble games was up there for that, for this conversation, but Jimmy Butler. He went back to Jimmy G buckets. The G stands for gets tonight. And Jimmy Butler's a guy who I gave so much praise in the bubble. He was unbelievable. I called him a top 10 player in the league. He was like playing as well as James Harden, Nikola Jokic, as well as anybody in terms of the way he was picking his spots to take over games, defending when he had to have more high usage and do more. He went off in the finals when Goran Dragic and Bam got hurt. But last year, it was a really weird year for the Heat. You know, they got a lot of injuries. It was a short off season. They got ravaged by COVID, and they kind of had this, let's just wait till the playoffs and kind of skip the process, which is not very characteristic of the Heat, but I think they had some kind of arrogance from winning going to the championship. And Jimmy Butler kept saying, you know, when we get to the playoffs, I'll take care of the rest and do all this. And he looked like a clown in the playoffs. He became more of because Goran Dragic declined, he became more of and obviously Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero played worse last season. He became more of like a point forward for them that was getting triple-double like numbers. And it often seemed like he was passing up shots for assists, like he was worrying about his stats too much. And he looked like he forgot how to score last year. You know, he's never been a guy with a vast bag or ISO package, but he had perfected a move that was hard to stop, where hard drive right. If you can get all the way, you can get all the way. If they cut it off, you stop. He would either pump fake or turn and pivot for a mid-range jump shot. He abused that move in the bubble. But last season with Giannis guarding him, he couldn't do anything. Tonight, I saw a totally different Jimmy Butler. And Heat fans, if you're Heat fans, I know I got a couple in there in my subscribers. Comment to tell me if this has been consistent this season, because he was getting the ball mid-range and just dominating every single, and I kid you, it's not even a joke, every single white guy he saw guarding him, whether it was Herter, Gallo, Bogdanovich, he was going right to the basket. He was getting by guys with his first step left and right, and he was going up strong. He was getting fouled a ton. I will say, though, Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry, they have a little bit of that foul baiting to them. It seemed like at one point, they were getting basically every call that was a foul, and Trae Young was getting little to nothing. So again, that goes back to home-centric officiating that we talked about in the last episode or last two episodes. You're going to see these calls go towards the home teams in the playoffs. It's just how it always has been. But Jimmy Butler was doing a good job getting fouled. He was pump faking guys at the rim and getting guys in the air. And the biggest, most surprising thing of it all was he was hitting his threes. That was crazy. When Jimmy Butler's hitting his jump shots and threes, you just forget about it. And it made up for the fact that Kyle Lowry didn't have the best night shooting the ball. He missed a lot of threes that he usually makes. Bam Adebayo was in foul trouble majority of the night. So Jimmy Butler had to really pick up the slack, and he did so. For example, Kyle Lowry, 2 of 8 from the field and 1 of 6 from deep. So not your typical night from him, but you know what Lowry's going to give other than that. He's going to make the right play. He's going to be able to be a threat on and off the ball. He's going to take charges. He's going to defend, and he's going to compete. He was getting a little testy with DeAndre Hunter at one point of this game, getting chest to chest, just getting a little physical. That's what the playoffs are all about. But Jimmy Butler, standout, absolute standout performance. However, in the first half, the Hawks were only down by 2 at the half. They were right there. And you got to give credit to, the main difference, as I said, with these two teams, the Heat guard, and they guard very well, and the Hawks don't really guard. They have some switchable personnel like DeAndre Hunter. I think Bogdanovich was switching with some guys in certain matchups tonight, but most of their stuff is traditional hard hedge and recover and worry about rotations. And that is a little bit of a disadvantage in today's NBA with the spacing compared to teams that can switch everything. It's exactly what we talked about last night with Denver and Golden State, and it's kind of the similar situation with Miami and Atlanta. And, with Okongwu out there, they go mostly drop coverage, sometimes hard hedge, a lot of drop coverage because they don't have with Lowry and Tyler Hero, you do usually have to bring your big man up. And it forces the defense into rotation. And the Miami Heat have an advantage in that aspect. And by the way, Trae Young, so he scored 18 points in the first half. And to be honest, I think he may have scored a good amount in the first quarter when I wasn't really watching because he was really working for everything. And one thing, as I said about the Heat, they're loading up. They're going to switch everything. Trae Young knows that when he goes to the basket, he's going to see multiple bodies in multiple hands. So sometimes it encourages him even more to take that deep three. And the Heat are going to live with that all day long. And the fact that he gets baited into taking such deep threes, I know he makes it and he has crazy range. But again, I'm always going to play the percentages with that. I'm just always going to play them. I will say, when the rare occasions came that Trae Young was being guarded normally in terms of pick and roll straight up, either drop coverage or hedge recover, he was getting into the floater game. He was making the right pass, getting the Hawks into 4-on-3 situations. And I thought the Hawks were doing a solid job capitalizing off of that. But I still think that it seemed like they missed a lot more threes than the Heat did. Now, I know it ended up being the Heat only made 2 more threes than the Hawks at the end of the game, but there was one point in the game where they had made like 10 more threes, the Miami Heat, in like the third quarter. But despite all that, the Hawks were still right there. So you got to give him credit. I thought DeLon Wright, another good impact off the bench. He was +8 in the plus minus, and that's reflective of his defense. And he scored nine points as well. So he's been a pretty solid piece for the Hawks in these first 2 games. But the second half is really where I locked in and focused. And I'll tell you where this went wrong. First of all, the Atlanta Hawks did not start the third quarter well by any means. And Trae Young has to take big accountability for this. 5 turnovers in the third quarter alone. And that's unacceptable for your star player, your point guard. 2 of them live ball turnovers that were punished. One of them was, and 2 of them were when the defense loaded up, Trae Young was just telegraphing his passes. Should have gone bounce pass, went chest pass when he was basically looking at the nearest man. And the Heat, again, going back to loading up, were ready for those passes. They were sagging off the shooters and playing the passing lanes, and they got out and ran. Max Strus had 8 points in the third quarter. He missed 2 threes at the end of the third quarter, but he was hot for a second. He scored off, and he's really strong, by the way. He scored off of a Trae Young turnover, and then he came off a screen. Trae Young, 1 second, just kind of didn't stay attached, ended up going topside on the screen. Strus got an opening for a 3 and knocked it down. And again, I still don't know why teams don't go at Trae Young more, because I remember when Jimmy Butler had the ball and they did put Trae Young in pick and roll, he's not switching that. He's hedging for a second and trying to recover. So again, going back to the Hawks don't have the same switch everything personnel, but I will say this about Atlanta. They tried harder tonight. They really competed. And I thought that they actually got good looks in the third quarter and were knocking them down for the most part. The only thing was they took 3 really quick threes that I didn't like. One by John Collins, one by Gallinari, and another by Bogdanović that were just unnecessary. And then you pile that on with the 7 turnovers that they had in the third quarter. 2 of them, by the way, were offensive fouls by Trae. So 7 turnovers, 5 of them coming from Trae, 2 live ball on telegraph passes, and 2 on offensive fouls. I don't even remember the 5th, but absolutely terrible. And Jimmy Butler just continued to pick up where he left off. Bam Adebayo got a 4th foul early in the third quarter, and Jimmy Butler was just ridiculously aggressive, just kept going to the basket, and even got into his mid-range where he hit a behind-the-back step back from the right elbow, and I was like, oh my goodness, if he's hitting these kind of shots, just forget about it. Just forget about it, because he's going to compete on defense. He's getting in the passing lanes. And Trae Young, I want to keep going back to this because he's made really uncharacteristic passes in these first 2 games. Like just law passes going off the backboard, passes going to the inside hand when they should go to the outside hand, overthrowing passes. Like he scored a couple times on broken plays. Like this one time in the first half, he overthrew an entry pass. Bam Adebayo almost stole it, and then came to Trae, picked it up, and put up a floater and scored. But that's a turnover most nights when you're doing that. But anyway, Jimmy Butler, as I said, hitting threes as well. And the Heat pushed it to a 10-point lead, and it was an 11-0 run that put him up 75-62. Jimmy Butler was getting MVP chance. It was that AAA. I still call it the AAA. I know it's called something different now, but that stadium is always going to be the AAA to me. The Hawks just had more miscommunications. They even tried having more switchable lineups, but they're not a super in sync defensive team. Fourth quarter. By the way, Heat outscored the Hawks 31-22 after 3. I thought the game was pretty much done. But in the fourth quarter, and by the way, the Heat actually continued in the beginning of the fourth. Dwayne Dedmon was doing a great job on the offensive glass. He was getting the crowd pumped up. He was working really hard, giving them extra possessions. But the Atlanta Hawks still had some fight left in them. And by the way, I thought John Collins was a little bit better tonight, especially with his rotations. I thought he played some really good help defense, some great rotations. But it was the Bogdan Bogdanović show in the second half, in the fourth quarter. We talked about in the last recap that Bogdanović had a terrible first game, but he bounced back beautifully tonight, getting into the mid-range area for some followaways, going to his left, getting to the basket for some bank shots, a little in-between game, and then he started hitting pull-up threes in transition. That was one thing the Hawks started doing better. When they were able to get some stops in that fourth quarter, they got into transition. Bogdanović hit a couple pull-up threes, and then he started hitting contested threes. He even hit this 1-3 in the corner, that contested sidestep. That was just ridiculous. And for a second, the Hawks were right there. Again, Trae Young, bad turnover, picked off by Jimmy Butler and taken all the way. And then another time, Trae Young, I think he actually got a bucket on a 3 off the ball. That's another thing. Trae Young, so stagnant off the ball. I've said this for since I started my podcast, but he realized a little bit later, Like this, I'm sorry, but I'm going to disagree with the Hawks fans. You may not have a consistent secondary shot creator, but Kevin Huerter, Bogdanovich, John Collins, all these guys can actually create in either pick and roll or certain ISO situations. And Trae Young, as great of a shooter as he is, needs to try to be off the ball a little bit more. He doesn't have any spontaneous off-ball movement. He's not Booker. He's not Curry or any of that. And he's also small, so it's really hard for a guy that small to cut off the ball and, just kind of like flash middle and be available for passes. But he can stick behind the three-point line and be a spacer. And he got an open three to cut it down to 4 by doing just that. And then he missed a layup. Like late in the game, gets to the rim, misses a layup. And I think he had another turnover late or something. He didn't close the game well. The turnover to Jimmy Butler is the one that sticks out. And then he missed a layup. And then it was 102-98, and the Heat came off a timeout, and Jimmy Butler finished the game like closers and superstars do. Now, I'm not saying Jimmy's a superstar. I still consider him more of an all-star, but we'll see. If you disagree with me, comment below. You think he's a superstar, but comes in, runs a little bit of a pick and roll with Bam, drops it off to him for a dunk to make it a 6-point game. But, Bogdanovich answered back with that sidestep 3 to make it a 3-point game. But Jimmy Butler, and this was really the play, besides the dunk, he drove to the basket and got a dunk, but the sidestep 3, follow-away 3 that Jimmy Butler made to make it 109-101, that was the dagger. And when he made that, you just knew, and he scored again after that too. It was just an incredible closing performance by Jimmy. Like, there's nothing else to say about it. Trae Young missing the layup, though, when it was a 4-point game at 98-102 was absolutely huge, because when he missed that, the Heat got a rebound and they called timeout. That could have made it a 2-point game, and these little plays matter. 10 turnovers matter. Kevin Huerter, I thought and so the Heat went on to win it 115-105. Jimmy Butler it was a playoff career high. He was just unbelievable on both ends of the floor. So aggressive. I'd never seen him dominate one-on-one like that before. He even was going to the post so much. And I really like that. Like, not even like he was going turnarounds over both shoulders, but just turning and facing, sweep through, rip through, going to the rim, pump faking guys, and bullying certain guys. And 45 points for him, plus 19, 15 of 25. That's 60% from the field, 4 of 7 from deep. That's insane. And then 11 of 12 from the line. So he just was awesome. 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, 0 turnovers. Like, that's got to be the best playoff game of his career to me. And it was also awesome that it came in front of the Miami Heat fans. This is a team that played 2 games at home last season in the playoffs. I don't even know if they were at full capacity, probably close to it, but they had nothing to cheer about in those games. The Bucks just wiped them off the floor. It was a team that looked a little fatigued, a little out of sorts. They've gotten a chance to kind of retool this year, bring Kyle Lowry in, which has taken Jimmy Butler off the ball and made him more comfortable going back to being a scorer and defender. And then Tyler Hero's played at, kind of picking up where he left off his rookie year. He had a sophomore slump, and now he's back. He's going to win 6th Man of the Year. And then guys like Caleb Martin, Strus, role players that are going to compete, play defense, and knock down open shots. I also should not forget Gabe Vincent in the first half, hit a couple of open threes. That guy can really shoot the ball. We talked about him in a recap earlier this season against my Clippers. He was shooting the lights out in that game. He had 11 points tonight on 3 of 6 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3. So all his made baskets were threes. Tyler Hero, a very quiet 15 points on 5 of 11 shooting. Did his job. Duncan Robinson, though, severely limited tonight. So got to credit the Hawks defense. He only played 7 minutes, and Spo didn't even go to him again. But Max Strus, 14 points, 5 of 10 shooting, 3 of 8 from deep. I thought he was really solid in his 22 minutes. Kyle Lowry, I said already, 9 points. Bam Adebayo only played 24 minutes because he had 4 fouls. 9 points for him. Not off to the best start to the series for him, but his presence is still felt in those starting lineups with the switch everything scheme. PJ Tucker was getting really frustrated with the refs. It's kind of crazy. Nobody on the Heat scored more than 15 points tonight. So it was truly a carry job offensively for Jimmy. 45 points, as I said, just unbelievable. As for the Hawks, yikes. Gallinari, 0 for 6, 2 points. And by the way, throughout the game, the Hawks just had a lot of chances to get, the shot quality on their threes wasn't as good as Miami, but they still got a ton of open looks. And it seemed like for a while the Heat were just making them and the Hawks weren't. It seemed like a battle of the 3-ball for a bit. It ended up being 12 for 40 for Atlanta. That's only 30%. That's a lot of threes, but a lot of them were good looks. Trae Young could do without taking 10 of them for one. I'll get into him in a second. 14 for 36 for Miami, though, 39%. So you're going to take that for sure. Pretty efficient. Gallinari, as I said, 0 for 6, 0 for 4 from 3, 2 points, just not good enough. John Collins, 13 points, 10 rebounds, 6 of 11 from the field. I think they got to try to – I just don't feel as though the Hawks try to develop Collins as a go-to guy. I feel like they just make him a pick-and-pop role guy, and I think he has some potential to work in the mid-post a bit, turn and face. Not necessarily post up, but turn and face. DeAndre Hunter, pretty solid tonight, I thought. 16 points. He's you can really tell his presence on defense in terms of his length and size. 16 points, 6 of 15 from the field, 1 of 5 from deep, though. Again, another guy that just could not make his open threes. Kevin Huerter, same deal. 9 points, 3 of 10 from the field, 3 of 7 from deep. Bogdanovich was incredible, though. 29 points to lead the way for Atlanta. 12 for 18 from the field. That's 66%. And then 5 of 10 from deep. Trae Young, though, his efficiency is the only thing that looks good. 25 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists on 10 of 20 shooting, but 2 of 10 from deep. So he was 8 for 10 from 2. I'm not going to say he should have shot way more twos because it's hard. He's not getting many looks. It's not like Kevin Durant where I can say you need to go to the post more. You need to go catch the ball in the mid-post and face. It's not easy for Trae. He's more comfortable. He's a point guard. Point guards are more comfortable. I can attest at the top of the key, running pick and rolls. But 10 turnovers, that's not going to do it. And then not closing well enough in the fourth, not making the big plays when you were given an opportunity by your teammate. 2 games, 2 poor performances from Trae Young. He should take a good amount of the blame for this one. I think, are you going to blame Kevin Huerter for going 3 of 10, Gallinari for 0 of 6, saying he had no help when he's turning the ball over 10 times? No, you can't do that. You can't do that because we already know that Trae Young's not doing anything on defense. He's trying, though. He wasn't terrible tonight, but he's just not doing much for you. 2-0 Heat, must win for the Hawks coming up. It's going to be interesting. I was entertained tonight, though. I was definitely entertained. Now we're going to shift gears to the Minnesota Timberwolves game 2 against the Memphis Grizzlies. So I watched the whole first half and a little bit of the third before I realized this game was cooked. And it was just a total difference night and day in terms of the energy from the Memphis Grizzlies. Last game I talked about, the Wolves made all the little plays. They were first every loose ball. They made big threes against momentum. But this game, it was the Grizzlies who, as they should have, took it to the Wolves to start the game. They were clearly trying to push the pace more, which is exactly what the Wolves did to them in the first game. And they were, the defensive rotations for Memphis, their help defense, particularly Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark, were everywhere. Long arms, making themselves big, helping if a guy got beat, running out to the three-point line and running guys off the line, just making it seem like there were more bodies on the court than there were. And one thing I really noticed, and by the way, the refs called everything in the first quarter of this game. 20 fouls for both teams in the first quarter, obviously combined. But one thing I noticed was Ja Morant. They said pregame that he wanted to get his teammates more involved. Ja Morant has been talking a lot before this game. He's been tweeting. He posted the Jordan. A real man talks. It's easy to talk when you're up 1-0. Not easy when it's even score, you're behind. And Ja Morant posted that Jordan video, but he backed it up tonight for sure. He let guys like Dylan Brooks get going a little bit in the beginning. He passed the ball a little bit before he started making his move. And it was pretty even in that stretch where he was doing that. Karl Anthony Towns picked up a silly foul with his hand in the cookie jar. A second foul early in the game. But Chris Finch, credit to him, he stuck with Cat. And Cat had a really solid first quarter. He got to the line a couple of times. He posted up and split a double team for a jump hook. He got to the basket once and dunked it down. So that was a pretty impressive start. A guy, though, that was taken out of the game, we didn't see the same performance tonight, was Anthony Edwards. In the beginning of the game, you saw the Wolves go to more D'Lo and Cat. But Ant, he was being a little bit passive to start the game. He was 0 for 3, and all 3 of those shots that he took in the beginning were tough shots, jump shots, contested. He finally scored. He hit a bucket at the end of the quarter. But the Grizz, they also made an effort besides the help defense, besides the transition, to get in the paint. That was their goal. Dylan Brooks was trying to get in the paint. And then Ja Morant, once the first 6 minutes or so went by, he was relentless, trying to attack the paint on pick and rolls. The ability for him to go from standing up straight to just low and splitting the D is incredible. And if you're guarding Ja Morant, you're not switching, you're actually getting over the screen, playing the pick and roll straight up. which when Karl Anthony Towns in the game, they do such a thing. They do that. They don't switch everything. You need to get over that screen and trail him from behind, because a lot of times what I've seen Ja do is he'll burst when he comes off that screen and basically try to go downhill on the big man like he's one-on-one with him. And tonight there was one play where he came off the screen and then swiftly crossed over to the right hand and went the opposite of where the big was trying to get him to go. And that put the gets all the help defenders collapsing to him. But it's very hard to guard when he's doing that. Coming off the screen, quick change of direction downhill. He was creating good shots. He found Xavier Tillman and Brandon Clark on pick and roll reads when they were hard hedging, recovering. And the recovery or the rotation wasn't there. Remember, it's hard to do that in today's NBA because the rotations are further. They're deep in the corners, these shooters. Desmond Bane also got off to a good start shooting the ball today. And that was big. He got a couple free throws, hit a couple of jump shots. But Ja Morant, late in that first quarter, he started getting going. He started pushing the pace off makes. And there was a sequence where the Wolves and the Grizzlies were just trading baskets, trading jump shots. Ja Morant was coming, getting a screen very high. And that's one thing I criticized him for last game. But he did a good job of first trying to get his teammates those shots and then attacking constantly. And he was getting to the rim, finding guys, and making good reads. But it was only a 1-point game after the first quarter. Second quarter, though, it was a very similar situation to what happened in game one. When Ja went to the bench, that second unit of Tyus Jones, DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson, and it was Dylan Brooks, and then Xavier Tillman made a nice run. And Xavier Tillman did a really good job rolling, got a couple of buckets on pick and rolls. One of them was an and-one dunk, but he also did a good job on this one defensive possession on Karl Anthony Towns. And he had 2 offensive rebounds in the second quarter alone, at least just in the first 5 minutes of it. He was very active. And the Grizzlies were very active. I saw that they lead the league in offensive rebounds, or at least second chance points. One of the two, maybe both. But I know they lead the league in second chance points. And they were much better on the glass tonight. Jaren Jackson Jr. was just working really, really hard. And Xavier Tillman was working really hard. I thought he had a great impact off the bench. Also, Brandon Clark's length, when he comes into the game, they can go a lot more switch everything. Steven Adams only played 3 minutes tonight. So he got 2 fouls early and he went out of the game and they didn't play him again because the Grizzlies want to go with more switch everything personnel. Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark being those versatile bigs that can move their feet. Kyle Anderson's got a lot of length too. He has long arms and makes a difference. But yeah, let me look at the offensive rebound count for the Grizz. 14 offensive rebounds to 4. So there's a big difference right there. 48-40 in the rebounding battle. It was just, and they were forcing turnovers too. 9 turnovers for Memphis, 19 for Minnesota. And it's funny because the Wolves actually kind of responded to the flurry where, Dylan Brooks made an open 3, Xavier Tillman offensive rebounds, Brandon Clark, Kyle Anderson was getting in the lane for a couple of floaters. They responded to that fairly well when Anthony Edwards came back into the game. But they ended the second quarter, the Grizzlies, very well. And that had to do with, by the way, and that has to do with a third foul on Karl Anthony Towns, a silly foul, shooting a 3 and sticking his legs out. Like, dude, what are you thinking? This is the second game in 3 that Karl Anthony Towns has gotten himself into foul trouble by making boneheaded mistakes. Too many careless turnovers for the Timberwolves. That one is included in that. You got Malik Beasley stepping on the 3-point line in transition. Anthony Edwards going ISO and just losing the ball, slipping out of his hands. And the Grizzlies had a flurry to end the quarter, moving the ball beautifully, finding open shooters. Desmond Bane was hitting jumpers. Ja Morant was attacking the rim and just, how his contact finishes are, just going straight into the teeth of the defense. Naz Reid actually had some decent moments of good defense, but overall, when Ja gets that 2 feet in the paint, you're done. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna hard hedge that fool, you better hedge him and you better hedge him hard and make sure that your guard can recover in time because he will turn that corner on you quick. I promise you, he will turn that corner or split. He's so good at doing either. And then in drop coverage, you're basically inviting him to your big man to just like elevate and go at his chest, and he's amazing at that. Jaren Jackson Jr. also finally hit a 3 late in the first half. And it was off the dribble, too, even though he had gotten a couple open looks. The toughest one was off the dribble. By the way, Tyus Jones, also another great impact off the bench tonight. 10 points on 4 of 8 shooting. Just a really solid performance by the Grizzlies bench again. Brandon Clark, 13 points, 5 of 8 shooting. And then after the beginning of the third quarter, I saw there wasn't much needed to watch anymore. Once I saw Ja Morant hit a step back three, I was like, all right, this is done. The energy was too much for Memphis. They were super determined to win this game. They were everywhere on defense. They were rebounding. They were pushing the pace. They wanted it more. As cliche as that sounds, they wanted it more. Jaren Jackson Jr., great rotations, put back dunk in the second quarter. He was awesome. 16 points for him and 7 rebounds on 5 of 12 shooting. And even though he missed his first 2 threes, 4 of 7 overall in the game. So he ended up making 4 of his next 5. Dillon Brooks missed all. Wow, I was mistaken then. It was a long 2 that Dillon Brooks made. He was 0 of 5 from deep, but 3 of 11 from the field. And don't let that fool you that he only had 9 points. He played great. And then Desmond Bane, they needed a better performance. They got a better performance. 16 points for him on 5 of 10 shooting. He only made 1 3, 1 of 4 from there, but was awesome. And then Ja Morant led by example tonight. And guys, I'm starting to lean more Ja in this Ja versus Trey battle. I gave Trey the benefit of the doubt all season, but the difference is Ja doesn't make as many bad plays. I don't think either of them are really good at defense, but Trey's legitimately bad. Ja's, as far as I've seen so far, average. And also Ja attacks the paint. And I'm always going to go with the guy that can attack the paint, and he's taller, longer arms than a guy that's going to rely on jump shots. And Ja Morant, another thing I like about him is just that it factor. Like when it comes to intangibles, I favor Ja. Trey's decision-making, his high turnovers are a little much sometimes. Ja Morant only turned the ball over 2 times tonight, 10 assists, found guys on the roll all night. And, he doesn't really get hard hedge recover mostly with Ja, but you kind of have to blitz him sometimes because you don't want to let him get downhill. Even though he doesn't have a jump shot where he can come off the screen and just pop like Trae Young, you don't want to let him get downhill. It's a different sort of threat. And Ja, I thought he bounced back really well tonight. 23 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists on 9 of 16 shooting, 2 of 4 from deep. And one thing I like about him too is he legitimately, when he has a smaller guard on him, I'm not saying he'll go to the post, but like he tried to post up Pat Beverly at one point tonight. And like he'll try to go right at their chest, try to overpower them. And he made the sign too small. So I love that about him. He just has that it factor, and the Grizzlies are blessed with it. They took care of business tonight. But let's remember, 124-96. But let's remember, the Timberwolves got what they came for. They got the game. Now it's going to be tough because we remember that Minnesota crowd from that Clipper game. They were hostile. And it's going to be really hostile because they've only been in the playoffs 2 times since I've started watching basketball. This is my 17th year, and they've only been in the playoffs twice, 2018 and this. So it's gonna be electric. Anthony Edwards, his stat line, 20 points on 7 of 16. One thing about Ant, and I criticized him last season for this, and this has been my criticism of him. He can't be too in love with the 3. I know he shot 40% tonight. He's been shooting lights out, but he can't get too in love with it because he's super athletic and has a great quick first step. But not a great performance from any Wolf tonight to me. Karl-Anthony Towns, 4 of 7, got himself in foul trouble, and it was part of the reason why the Grizzlies made that run. 15 points, 11 boards. D'Lo needs to be way better than this. 2 games where he shot poorly, 11 points. He needs to be much better in Minnesota. And now let's end it off with what was maybe the most entertaining game of the night. By the way, shout out to the live subscribers waiting patiently in the chat. Don't worry, I will get you your comments tonight for sure. But again, a nice start from the Suns. Devin Booker doing it. I don't want to say doing it all, but doing it. 16 points in the first quarter for Book, whether it was coming off of screens on the ball, if the big was dropped, if Valanciunas was dropped too deep, or he was coming off screens. And this is, by the way, I'm starting to really like lock in and focus on the Phoenix Suns sets. And they love a lot of that double drag where they run one guard, like usually Book setting the screen and popping out, and then Chris Paul coming off that screen and then coming off Ayton's screen. So he has 2 options. He has Ayton's lob and he has Booker's kick out, basically like a cross-court pass. And the reason why that's hard to guard is because usually the closest man would be rotating to Ayton, but he's got to worry about Booker. So he's got to leave Booker. And that's a really genius play. And then there's another play where it's not the Spain pick and roll. The Spain pick and roll is when they screen the screener's man off after he sets a screen. But it's another one where I think they called it, what did they said a name for it at second half. Rebecca Harlow said some name. But it's where Booker comes off, Chris Paul comes off an Ayton screen, and then Booker comes up, and it's like Ayton kind of sets a screen for him as he's rolling. And Booker gets an open 3 right at the top, and he got several open shots with that. And then he was just getting into his mid-range area. And the step back shot he hit at the end of the first quarter was like ridiculous. But mind you, it makes it, the way I'm talking right now, it sounds like the Suns are just killing the Pelicans in the first. Oh no, that Pelicans came out with much better intensity tonight, much better attention to detail. And I thought that one of the reasons that was I'm going to check right now to see if this was an adjustment made by Willie Green, but Jackson Hayes started tonight. And I thought, oh no, okay, he started the other night too. Never mind. But I don't know. It seemed like they were more versatile defensively. You know, Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum are going to switch a lot of actions. Obviously not on Ayton, but they're going to switch everything else basically. But Valanciunas, you're going to go typical drop coverage with him or hard hedge recover. And actually, no, they were going a lot of hard hedging for focusing on rotations because they have the length with Herb Jones, with Brandon Ingram, and of course, CJ being your smallest guy, that's pretty good. He's like 6'3", but he's hefty. So he usually plays the 2 in Portland. So having him as your smallest guy is good. So you can focus on covering that ground for the roller and getting out to the shooters in time. And Brandon Ingram started out the first quarter very similarly to how we started out the playing game against us. Dominating in the mid-range area, coming off screens with that right elbow, posting guys up. He got 2 fouls on Devin Booker in the first quarter. He was awesome. He set the tone really nicely, and the Pelicans led 30-28, even though CJ McCollum missed a couple of open shots that he usually makes. You know, his typical mid-range coming off a screen when the biggest drop too deep or an open 3, missed multiple of those in the first quarter. But the Pelicans were up 2 because of that. Just great defense overall and drop coverage for New Orleans. Valanciunas doing a good job. Everybody doing a good job rotating. And CJ was started to hit the open shots at the end of the quarter. He hit an open 3 on the left wing, if I recall correctly, and started knocking him down, led by 2 after 1. Second quarter, by the way, another guy who's been playing really well the last 3 games, going back to the play-in, Larry Nance Jr. Because when he comes in, that gives the Pelicans the versatility to do their own version of switch everything. It got cooked in the fourth quarter last game against Chris Paul, but tonight Chris Paul was not on the same time. He looked a little fatigued. He started out deferring to Booker again, but he didn't fully get his shot going at any point himself. And he was missing shots that he's made his whole career. The typical mid-ranges coming off screens, right elbow or isolating with the favorable switch, just trying to lull guys to sleep for that mid-range of that 3, coming off screens. Big was dropped too deep, pulling a 3, missing. So, and a lot of the shots were short, which tell me that his legs were kind of gone. And Charles Barkley made a reference to him looking a little tired tonight. And he looked like it. But Larry Nance not only was playing good defense, he was, crashing the boards. He got an offensive rebound. He even hit a 3 and a long jump shot. So that was really impressive to me about Nance, that he was able to do that. The Pels, again, for the second consecutive game, dominated the glass. Tonight, 43-33. So I think both games, they've won the glass battle by 10. And Jonas Valanciunas is a big reason for this. 3 offensive rebounds, but 13 rebounds overall to go with his 10 points. And you know what's funny, guys? If you all remember correctly and go watch the vlog that I still have up on my channel, when Valanciunas played the Clippers in the first game this season, he literally made like 8 threes like he was Dirk Nowitzki, but that was clearly just an outlier. He's not that great of a three-point shooter. I know he can hit it, but it looks long and just awkward when he shoots it, and he's been passing them up. He only shot 2 of them tonight, missed them both, and he stopped shooting it after that. And I actually like it because you get a little pick and pop action. Valanciunas hands it off to McCollum, who's coming over from the other side, and then he'll set us go into a dribble handoff. I actually really like that action. And he'll roll to the basket. Roll to the basket, and Valanciunas can hit that push shot. The push shot that DeAndre Ayton was making again tonight. But I have a really big problem with the way the Suns use Ayton. I think he's way more skilled than what they give him. 6 shots? 6 shots for a guy that wasn't in foul trouble, and Devin Booker ended up getting injured in this game, and you're only giving him the ball. They just use him as like a role player. Like he just can do pick and rolls. Like, dude, this guy has skill. He has turnarounds over both shoulders. He has mid-range game. He has a jump hook. But you're not going to make him a star when playing him like this. And I'm not going to, and by the way, those are going to say, Monty should drop more plays. Fuck that. No, Monty is a coach. The NBA is the most free reign league of them all. Mr. Point Guard. He constantly wants to do everything pick and roll sometimes. This has been my biggest criticism of him since we had him. Like, I love Chris, man. I love him. I think he gets it so much, and he's got one of the greatest basketball IQs of all time. But sometimes he just wants to do his Chris Paul game. Sometimes it's just best to go, like, they need to go traditional, old school, feed the post with Ayton. like straight up. And tonight, the Pelicans, they weren't really switching much. They were in the Nance lineup, but with Valanciunas, who was usually matched up against Ayton, they don't switch that action because they're smarter than that. But I think Ayton has the ability to go one-on-one against Valanciunas because sometimes they were throwing it to Valanciunas to go one-on-one against Ayton. What makes you think that Ayton can't do the same? 6 shots? That's just not enough for me. But anyways, Mikhail Bridges and Jake Crowder, by the way, were doing such a great job like in the first half, and their defense is just so good. They're able to – the Suns don't really do switch everything. They rely on that drop coverage with Ayton and Mcgee because they have great length that it can get over those screens with Bridges, with Cam Johnson, and with Crowder. And they were doing a good job of that again tonight. Just classic. Mikhail Bridges was hitting threes as well. He ended up finishing 2 of 3 from 3, 7 of 11 from the field, 19 points. I thought Bridges was really good. Jay Crowder, though, has had a tough start shooting the ball and just a tough start in general. He is only averaging 3 points right now in the series. 2 of 11 from the field tonight, 0 of 5 from 3. The Suns were 13 of 35 from deep, so 37%, not that bad. Could have used a 3 or 2 from Jay Crowder, though, for sure, and maybe an extra 3 from Cam Johnson, who was 1 of 6, and Cam Payne was 0 of 2. It was really Devin Booker and Mikhail Bridges that really bailed out the percentage. Devin Booker in the second quarter came back in the game after Chris, he hit a shot or two, but he just wasn't really going like that. CJ McCollum started to get going, though. There was one point in the second quarter where I was telling my dad, I was like, yo, CJ needs to pick it up because the Pels are right there. They are really right there. Like he turned it over on he turned it over when he was double teamed and missed some good looks. 7 Pels turnovers in the second quarter. It looked like the Suns were going to start pushing it and running away with it in the second quarter. I think they went up by 8 points, but CJ started to hit threes at the end of the quarter. And Trey Murphy, like the young wings for the Pels, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and Najee Marshall, they have good length. They play hard, and they're pretty decent shooters. At least Trey Murphy has shown that he's a pretty decent shooter. He made a big 3 to make it a 2-point game going into the half. But Devin Booker in the second quarter, again, came back in and just went nuclear, like getting into his mid-range, getting into that play that I talked about where he's coming off the pin down and shooting straightaway 3. Just scoring in basically every which way you can think of. And hitting such tough shots. Like the degree of difficulty, he even pulled up from the logo at the end of the quarter. It was insane. He had 31 points at halftime. 31. So by the way, for those that want to keep debating who the best player on this Suns team, I've been consistent for over a year now with this Dime Dropper fam. You already know. It's disrespectful to what Booker does. You act like people can just score like that. Like people think that just score. It's not about, and this is why I cannot stand. I don't like this narrative that 2 points is 2 points. 25 points is 25 points. When you score on the ball and off the ball, you can run legit sets where you can just catch the ball and fire or catch the ball and work quickly off the catch from anywhere on the floor. That makes it so much easier for people to play with you. It makes it so much harder to guard. It's less predictable. These are things that people need to consider when ranking Booker amongst the league. I don't want to hear borderline top 10 anymore. He's fucking top 10. I don't want to hear it. It's disrespectful at this point to just say it's his team. It's disrespectful because he's defending. Chris Paul's the worst defender in this starting lineup. And by the way, that brings me to my next point. Chris Paul can't guard anybody besides like Herb Jones in that starting lineup for the Pels. Every time they had CJ or Ingram, they would go to the post, and all Chris could do was foul. Even Brandon Ingram, early to start the third quarter, got a bump and won. And Brandon Ingram, even though he went quiet, like when the Suns made their run in the second quarter, Ingram sat out for a while, it seemed. And when he came back in, like he didn't even touch the ball. It was all CJ basically. But in the third quarter, he picked up where he left off, got to the rim a couple times, hit a corner 3, even though he turned his ankle, and that was kind of concerning for a sec. And the Pelicans took the lead, 69-67. Chris Paul, though, started going a little more ball dominant. I think that was a point of emphasis for them to try to get Chris going in the second half. He scored 7 points in the third quarter, but still missed a lot of shots, man, mid-range. And I think the Pels did a better job on him overall, trying to force him to his left a little bit too. He even was forced to make a left-handed layup, which he did at one point in the fourth. But they were trying to take away that right hand as much as they could. Not really as much as they could, but a little bit. He was missing shots that he normally made, though, guys. 5 for 16 from the field for CP. 5 for 16. 2 of 6 from 3. And almost none of these shots were like, yes, they were well contested, but none of them were completely out of the ordinary for Chris. And you got to give credit to the Pels defense, for sure. And Booker getting injured, though, changed the whole game. We were wondering where he was for the rest of the third quarter, and the Pelicans took full advantage of this. Reggie Miller, it was a lineup because Chris had to get his rest. there was a lineup where Reggie was like, no Chris, no Book, Reggie Miller, that is. You got to push this lead to 8 or 9. They did exactly that. And they did it by obviously Brandon Ingram, a little bit of CJ McCollum, but getting out in transition on misses. And that's one thing that the Pelicans with their youth need to do more, especially when they go back home to Smoothie King Center. Jackson Hayes had 2 straight dunks in transition, and I really loved the way he was playing tonight. There was one amazing sequence where Mikhail Bridges had he was guarding Jackson Hayes on the block, and I was like, okay, Jackson Hayes post game turned over his right shoulder, put up with his right hand, and Mikhail Bridges swatted it. And on the other end, he tried to dunk, literally exactly the same play, went and tried to dunk, and Jackson Hayes came out of nowhere and pinned him off the glass, or pinned him on the glass with 2 hands. It was sick, just a sick play by Jackson Hayes, who had 9 points on 4 to 7 shooting and 2 blocks, one of them being that one I just described. It was awesome. Totally awesome. Fourth quarter, though, and by the way, the Pelicans outscored the Suns 34-22 after 3. I thought Larry Nance, again, I think that was when he hit the long 2. Just a really solid performance again, and he gives them that defensive versatility where they can try to switch everything. But Brandon Ingram was the star of the third quarter. Mid-range assassin, baby. How many threes? Let's see how many threes Brandon Ingram shot tonight. 3, and guess what? He made every single one. 3 of 3, but 13 for 21 from the field and 8 of 8 from the line. 37 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists. Like, that's a superstar stat line. Again, we are seeing a star before our very eyes. Andrew Wiggins, as solid as he is not a better player than Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram's Pelicans were just doing so badly because he legitimately had no help in the beginning of the season, and that's why he didn't make the All-Star team. And that's not a knock on Andrew Wiggins. There's just levels to this shit, and Brandon Ingram is one of the best young players in the league, and he has not gotten the chance to show this for so many years because he was on a Laker team that traded him and he would have made the playoffs in 2019 if LeBron hadn't gotten hurt. And obviously he had the blood clot, so that was a reason we don't talk about that the Lakers didn't make the playoffs either. But we weren't able to see him in the playoffs for several years of his career. You have this whole Zion thing where he's just like leaving Brandon Ingram out to dry. He constantly has foot issues. He's out of shape. It's taken so long for him to get back on the court. But thankfully, the Pelicans front office made a move to bring in CJ McCollum and give Brandon Ingram some help. Because next season, because they're still not going to win this series, I don't think, unless Booker's out for the whole thing, which I don't think he will be. But it's getting dangerous now. But if Booker's out for these games in New Orleans, they got to get at least one, New Orleans. They got to push these guys. If Devin Booker's out, there's no reason why they don't think they should win the series because they got to have the best player on the court. Maybe the top 2. I don't know if I'm ready to say CJ's better than Chris, though. But Ingram is for sure the best to me. Like, I don't care what anyone says. His defense is good, and he literally is unguardable at times. When he kind of is. When he's scoring like that, there's nothing to stop a guy that's made the mid-range a science. There's nothing. I keep saying this. Mid-range wins in the playoffs. I said this about Brandon Ingram. I need to go find that clip because I literally said that the mid-range mastery of him not shooting threes will benefit him down the line in postseason play. And we're seeing it right now. We're literally seeing it. Fourth quarter, very interesting. This is when you knew if Chris Paul had a takeover left in him, this is where it had to happen. Well, the Suns started out the fourth with a 15-5 run. And I thought somebody who was a really, really good player for the Suns tonight, Javel Mcgee. You know what an addition he was. We talked about it in the Phoenix Suns preview with my man Nothing But Suns before the season even began, that they brought him in because they want to have somebody else for Giannis when DeAndre Ayton goes to the bench if they meet him again. And Javel Mcgee, alongside that, he's really good in drop coverage, playing ball handler and roller because he's so long and athletic. Great roll to the basket, got a couple of easy dunks on that. And then when the Pelicans did go switch everything in the Nance lineup, he was able to establish low post position or low just position underneath the basket and drew fouls. He was 4 of 4 from the field, didn't have a block, but he had 10 points on 4 of 4 and was a really solid spark for the Suns, and even made a beautiful pass to a cutting Mikhail Bridges early in that fourth quarter. Mikhail Bridges had 2 dunks on 2 cuts, and I think Bridges is one of the best off-ball movers, cutters in the NBA that Villanova experienced. By the way, the Villanova boys, Jalen Brunson and Mikhail Bridges, that 2018 team, doing the business right now. But when Mikhail Bridges had those 2 dunks, and then Cam Johnson, who I thought had a really solid game outside of the missing threes, had a nice turnaround on a stop on a dime on an ISO, like one-on-one, stopped on a dime at the foul line, turned over his left shoulder and hit, and got a steal and went all the way for a dunk. I thought that's when the Suns would maybe just ride the momentum home and the Pelicans' inexperience would take over. But they don't fully have inexperience because they still have CJ McCollum. And despite the fact that the Suns went up 96-95 with about 8 minutes left, Willie Green called timeout. And by the way, I am so proud of Willie Green, man. 2013 starting shooting guard for my Clippers. We had the most wins in franchise history at the time. I know it was a disappointing season when we lost to Memphis, but Willie Green is, he was one of us, and his enthusiasm when he coaches is awesome. He was telling them to push the pace. They were doing exactly that. But Brandon Ingram, mid-range pull-up, gave the Pelicans the lead, 99-98. And by the way, I almost forgot a guy that was huge in the fourth quarter, 7 points, a floater and drop coverage, and 2 threes. I think 8 points, in the fourth. Jose Alvarado. He played big when they needed him to in the fourth. Those 2 threes and that floater and drop coverage, really good reads. And, well, the floater was a read, but the other one's just catching and shooting and making it, and then playing hard defense. And Chris Paul just kind of ran out of gas. Missed a mid-range. DeAndre Ayton missed a mid-range. That's when you knew the momentum was coming. CJ McCollum came off the screen. DeAndre Ayton was dropping too deep, pulled up from straight away. 4-point Pelicans lead, 102-98, and you knew the momentum was starting to shift here. And when Alvarado made his second three, that put the Pels up 6, and I was starting to think right there that they could ride this home. The momentum had kind of been sucked out of the building, and it's like, what are you relying on here? You're relying on Chris Paul to save you again, because they're not going to Ayton really as a real post-up big man. They're not really using him like a star, and that's a problem. And then once again, CJ McCollum getting to the basket and hitting another three. Just a classic CJ McCollum fourth quarter kind of takeover situation. Brandon Ingram then made a three and made 2 threes, in fact, and finished it off and just closed it with his mid-range. An unbelievable performance by Brandon Ingram. 125-114. The Pelicans win it. They outscore the Suns 35-31 in the fourth, but it was really the third quarter where they made their mark. However, the Suns did get back in it and took the lead in the fourth, so I don't want to say that. It was the fact that they had it was kind of like the Clippers, actually. They had 2 stars, and the Suns had 1, and he was gassed. All his shots were short. Brandon Ingram, 37, 11, and 9. 13 of 21 shooting, 3 of 3 from 3, 8 of 8 from the line. Incredible. Herb Jones, also really solid. Hit 2 threes out of 3, 5 of 8 from the field. Had a nice, tough finish against DeAndre Ayton as well in the second half. And he played good defense, has great length, 14 points. That kid's got potential. Valanciunas did what he needed to do. 10 points, 13 rebounds. Not a crazy game, but did what he needed to. 4 of 9 shooting. Jackson Hayes, I already talked about. 9 points, 4 of 7 was good. McCollum, his stat line in terms of his field goal percentage doesn't look great. 23 points on 7 of 18 shooting, but 6 of 10 from 3. And in the fourth quarter, made the big shots that counted, penalizing DeAndre Ayton in drop coverage. And am I going to blame DeAndre Ayton for the game tonight? Nah, not really. Maybe a little bit, but it's like they need to empower him more. Chris Paul, if anyone, needs to take the biggest blame tonight. And it's also just bad luck. Devin Booker getting hurt. And this tells you guys to stop underestimating what Devin Booker does for this team. This whole Chris Paul's so much better in the advanced stats. Fuck the advanced stats. Those advanced stats look cute in the regular season against these bullshit-ass teams load managing. But when you're playing against Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum and everything on the line, you're going to need Devin Booker, baby. Because guess what? If they don't have him in the second round, I don't know, though. The Mavs and the Jazz, jury's still out on them. But the way this looks right now, guys, the Golden State Warriors look like I know it's only been 2 games, and maybe I'm overreacting, but the Golden State Warriors look like the best team in the league and in the West. There's just, with the way Jordan Poole is playing, and the difference with the Warriors and the Suns is they'll switch everything on you. And they won't give you any mismatches like that or play the pick and roll straight up. And once Chris Paul faces that kind of defense, what the hell is he going to do? What's he going to do when he sees Iguodala, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins? He's going to hope that he can try to score on Steph Curry and Jordan Poole. That's his best bet. But it's going to be tough. But the Suns got bigger problems right now. 125-114. And Larry Nance, 13.6 rebounds on 6 of 9 shooting. And then for the Suns, DeAndre Ayton, 10 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Needs to just 0 turnovers. Like, he needs to get the ball more. 4 of 6 is not good enough. Mikhail Bridges, 19 points, 6 rebounds, 7 of 11 from the field, and 2 of 3 from 3. He was great. I already talked about Crowder. Chris Paul, 17 points and 14 assists. See, that stat line still looks good. Like, I want to still say about Chris, he still made some great passes, was making some great dump offs in the pick and roll, making the right reads. You already know Chris Paul's going to make all the right reads, find open shooters, great passer, making some nice passes in transition too. Like, just passing it up ahead and letting them go like he did in game 1. And 0 turnovers too, like 14 assists to 0 turnovers, the god of assist to turnover ratio, but he missed too many shots and they needed him to be better tonight, especially in the fourth quarter. 5 of 16 for Chris, 2 of 6 from 3. I guarantee he will bounce back though. And one subplot to this series we're not even talking about, Chris Paul playing his former franchise that drafted him and that he played 6 years for in the playoffs for the first time. So that's something to think about. That's going to be exciting. Devin Booker, 31 points all in the first half, 12 of 19 from the field, 7 of 11 from deep. Cam Johnson, 11 points on 4 of 10 shooting and 1 of 6 from deep. But that's it for me tonight, guys. A great slate of games. It's playoffs. I've been really entertained so far. I hope you guys can tell by my enthusiasm talking about these games. It's totally different. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm going to keep enjoying it. Tomorrow, though, this is how I see it, guys. There's every single series that's solid, and then there's the Celtics-Nets series that's like 10 levels above. That's like a conference final series. It's incredible. I cannot wait. I love it because the home team won the first game, so that means that if the Nets want a better chance of winning this series, they got to get one tomorrow. How is Kevin Durant going to respond? Is Jaylen Brown going to have a slightly better game? Is Tatum going to be that good again? And is Kyrie going to be that good again? I can't wait to see what adjustments the Nets make. Thanks for joining me tonight, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you comment for the algorithms. Make sure you leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts for me. Let me know what you think. Give me all your feedback. And now we're going to go to the live subscribers waiting oh so patiently in the chat at 1 a.m. Pacific time. I got the best fans in the world, man. Peace. Whoa. Let's see what we got tonight, boys and gals. My boy's Easy Visions. Did you see Gabe Vincent out there? I mentioned him. What's up, my boy Kyle Dominic? You, man. You're always here, man, showing love. I'm going to repay you one day, I promise. My boy Danny. My boy Danny was getting, you don't come at me like that with those vultures, will get on your ass. I got a cult on Twitter, my boy. Kyle says, great win by Memphis, but do you see them winning in Minnesota? Yes, I do, because I'm going to stick with my pick. Memphis in 6. I'm going to stick with it. Although after game 1, I would say probably Memphis in 7, but I'm going to stick with my pick. I don't change. Until I'm proven wrong, I'm not going to change. Grizzlies in 6. They're going to win one of the games in Minnesota. That's confirmed to me. It's just a matter of if Minnesota can win one of the games 5 or 6 to me. Kyle Dominic, you says your take on Booker's injury, panic time. Busy night. Happy for fellow Laker Ingram. Yes, I can see a lot of Laker fans are happy for him. Minnesota threw up a bunch of bricks. Yeah, it's just I've been to game 2s where the home team needs to win. Most notably the 2014 game 2 against the Warriors where we beat the shit out of them. And sometimes teams just don't. And this was a sign of a young team tonight. They didn't really take that game seriously after the first quarter. They got hit with a run and they crumbled. And Karl-Anthony Towns just he needs to stay on the court. He can't be if I get it if like a big man or someone's going at you, if Morant's constantly going at your body, but just sticking your leg out and picking up these cheap fouls is just ridiculous. Karl-Anthony Towns needs to be a lot smarter if he wants to take this Minnesota team past this series. I've literally not missed one game of the playoffs. I'm trying to do all this for you guys because then it's not just about now. You guys will be able to go back and watch these recaps years down the line and see what I was saying. I have receipts on myself and I have analysis on everything because these stars, you're going to analyze their legacies and shit. I'm going to try to break it down. Notice in all my recaps, I put big emphasis on the stars' performance. Big. Because at the end of the day, the playoffs are about the dudes. It's about your stars and who wins and loses. And if your star's not doing enough, then you got to look at him first before you just blame the guys making 15 million, 5 million, That's how it goes. Heat 92. I've never seen your account before. Dime, talk on it. What's up, bro? Appreciate you. Keep it real. Heat 92. What, you on Twitter, bro? Shout out to you. Yeah, there you go. Jimmy Butler getting outscored by Bryn Forbes. I know he's better now, but last year was terrible. I know. Jimmy Butler always attacks the mismatch, says Moises Canega. Jimmy Butler's been the same player since he joined the Heat. His game hadn't changed. People just think he fell out of hatred for him, but he's always had the midi, always been a willing passer. Bro, but what's the explanation for last year? I'm not going to buy he was just guarded by Giannis because it wasn't like he was getting guarded by Giannis every time. He looked like he lost his confidence in his scoring. He looked hesitant to shoot, and his jumper didn't look confident at all. I think he became such a playmaker that he kind of lost that aspect of his game for a sec. What was with Duncan Robinson going off last game and game 2 gets 2 minutes or 7 minutes? Schemes, my friend. Schemes. Scheming him out the game. He'd have the best defense in the NBA. Trey's been in jail. Worst game of the season in game 1 and career had 10 turnovers in game 2. Facts. Heat 92 spitting. Moises Kanyega. We have a lot of Heat fans right now, huh? The heat is on. On the street. They be playing that after the games because the heat is on. I love the way the Heat are playing. I would love if the Heat won the championship. I actually would love it. I don't like a lot of these teams in the NBA, but I actually really like the Heat because I like the Godfather, man. I love me some Godfather. And Jimmy G Buckets. The G stands for gets. Easy. Duncan was in foul trouble. I didn't even notice that. And Spo called Caleb's number, and Caleb was playing decent. Oh, that's why. Sorry I didn't watch the game. That's why I didn't know. Those signings by the Heat in the 10-day contracts era with Caleb, Strus, and Vincent were huge. Yeah, amazing. Why do you do this live at 3 a.m.? First of all, it's 12 a.m. And secondly, it's because, one, I was talking to one of my guys, Fabian from the by the way, check that episode out. Fabian's great on the Knicks, what went wrong with the Melo era Knicks. I have clips in there. All 3 of the first parts are good. The first part is talking about the end of the Ewing era. Then we talk about the poverty years, and then we get into the Melo, bulk of the Melo. And then I'm going to do the final part after the season ends, probably talking about like the Phil Jackson years and when it was just a shit show. But I'm going to try to go live earlier for you. Part of it's because I recorded the game so I can watch all 3. So that was part of why I went live a little late. Moises Kanyega says Dwayne Dedmon gave the Heat a boost as well with his rebounds. I talked about that. Heat said 92's Hawks do have good defender. Trey just brings down their defense, but DeLon, Hunter, Congo, Herter are all good. Okay, definitely. I agree, but I think it's all in today's NBA. It's all about team defense, and I just think they kind of struggle. I don't know if that's because of a trade thing or what's going on this season. I think not having Capella, though, I didn't talk about that enough in my live, but Capella in my recap, but not having Capella's big guys. Like, if you would have told me they're not going to have Capella, I would say they're getting swept. You know what I'm saying? Even though he's had a down year, he's a difference. You saw how he played in the play-in. Definitely DeLon Wright. FTX time. I'm not calling it that. It's the AAA, man. It's still the American Airlines Center in Dallas, by the way. Margella Madman says this is a sweep. Players like Hero aren't even scoring like usual. Nah, we'll see. Kyle's take says still giving Hawks 1 game, but man, a part of me wants to change it to a sweep and pick them before the thing locks. I actually never made my picks for this series, but I said I would say Heat in 5, so I'm going to stick with that. So I give Trey Young a game. Heat 92 says if Bam and Hero play like normal, it'll be a sweep. What about if Trey Young plays like normal? There's always 2 sides of the coin, my friend. Well, they got 2 games to do, so I think they can. Yeah. Jimmy's the star who can have superstar night. Couldn't have said it better myself. Jimmy dominated 1-on-1 in the finals versus LeBron and AD. He had 30 and 40 twice. Yes, and this is why I said he was a top 6-7 player in the NBA, but then he made me look foolish last year. My boy, I need more justification for this. Kyle said, I know Jimmy shot well today on threes, but what happened to his jump shot over the years? I remember he used to shoot threes or jump shots in Chicago and Philly. Yeah, I agree. It looked good tonight, though. What's up, Brent? He's always been low volume, never took many. Yeah, I think it's an aspect of his game. He just didn't practice enough. But he's not bad in the mid-range. It's just the threes. And some guys not everyone needs to shoot threes. This is a misconception of today's NBA. Basically went from 30% to 25%. Not a crazy drop-off. Yeah, there you go. Man, I better check out those stats again from Chicago and Philly. Sometimes I get really sick of these Hawks, man. People always give Trey the benefit of the doubt, but the Hawks team severely disappointed, and they ain't the same team as last year. Yeah, I know. No, I'm not going to give Trey the benefit of the doubt anymore. I gave him so much praise last year for the second half of the season and how he played in the playoffs, but we got to be real. Right now, him and Donovan Mitchell are in the doghouse. Jason Tatum and Devin Booker look levels above them. And, dude, the way Brandon Ingram's playing, he's in this conversation too. I'm serious. Heat 92 says, yeah, like 3 attempts a game. The highest was 34%, but that's just my memory. Could be wrong. Kyle says 37% on his threes, his last year in Chicago, so that's 2017. That was his best scoring year for my memory. But yeah, you're right, 34% in Philly and hovering around 23 to 24% in Miami. So basically he made like 1 3 games as Heat 92. His mid-range has been the same. He can make threes when he needs to. Doesn't even need to. True, but it's definitely better this year, though. It was quite bad last year, especially if you see those games. Xavier Tillman was out hustling the entire Wolves team in like the second quarter. It felt like he was getting every rebound, offense and defense. Oh, you watched the game, clearly. Ant versus LaMelo. At first, I was going LaMelo, but I may start to lean Ant. He's a beast. You've been watching basketball for quite a while, but when do you start watching it to this level with the game analysis? Well, I guess you could just say yearly, gradually. Each year I get to understand the game better. You get to see the game differently as you get older. I'd say always, really. But 2017, when the league became very pick and roll oriented, it became easier for me to kind of understand because, like, I don't know. I don't think the pick and roll shit is that difficult to understand. So I'd say maybe around after I graduated high school, my lens started broadening. But after the pandemic, when I started dime dropper and started watching old basketball again, my whole mindset changed. Like I stopped making excuses for some of the players. Like I started to see things a lot differently after that because I remembered what smart players did back in the day. BFNS 23 says Ayton needs to go to Detroit. They'll have the best young core in the East. Okay, well, let's not be ridiculous. Cal says in the first 2 playoff games, I can tell Ayton isn't like last playoffs. Could be lack of aggression or what you said, less opportunities. No. Let's not do that because did you watch game 1? He was great. And he was great game 1. Bad, not a great game 2, but game 1 he was good. Don't want to overreact yet, especially making assumptions about Golden State versus the Suns, but I can say if we really play this way consistently, we got a shot at Memphis. A shot at Memphis? What you mean? You'll kick their ass the way you're playing. Oh, curious cover question. Lawler versus Seaman. Come on, man. I love Brian, but there's nothing like Ralph, dude. He's my childhood. Do y'all think the Suns should max Ayton? Yes, absolutely. Derek Potts. What's up, Go? What's up, Derek? I still haven't met you, bro. You got to pull up on the games to me at halftime. Especially at that time. Yeah, they should have. Your take on Young Mustard calling the Heat pretenders? Yeah, I think they kind of are pretenders to win the championship. Just because I just don't trust Jimmy at the highest level. Final 4. As my boy Ricky G says, there's 3 seasons. There's the regular season, there's the playoffs, and there's the Final 4. That's where Kevin Durant and Steph Curry kind of falter relative to all-time greats. That's why I don't see them top 10 all time. But Erod, what's up, my boy? Long time no see. Pelicans really got something in Willie Green. So I don't think it's by the way, to answer your question, Kyle, it's not a bad take. And I'm damn proud of Brandon Ingram. Facts. Kyle says the Memphis-Minnesota game was the only game I watched and I made observations. Okay. Man, I'm not going to lie. I'm so mad Miami didn't draft Maxey. Instead, they drafted Precious. Wow. Could you imagine? I didn't even know that. He said, forgetting Maxey. Bane, Tillman were still on board. Maxey and Bane are the best players. I like Tillman, but he's not better. I think Maxey and Bane. Maxey may be the best player of the 3. Oh, man, he's been so good these first 2 games. But anyway, that's it for me tonight, guys. Any last questions? Remember, Super Chats are turned on. If you want to drop $1, dime, make a donation for your boy. My software, this is costing a good amount. I'm trying to give you guys the best. So anything helps. I appreciate you guys. I'll give back to you guys one day. I promise. We just got to spam, man. Stay loyal and you will reap the benefits of being supporters of me. I can promise. But anyway, that's it for me tonight, guys. Have a great night. Tomorrow, I cannot wait. Might have a guest on the live. Happy 420, everybody. Boston or Brooklyn, Celtics in 7, baby. B-Town.